Good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, depending on where and when you're watching this broadcast. I'm Thomas Fessler, my friends, and this is Disclosure Tonight. Happy Saturday, February 7th, 2025. This is the day of the week we turn our production time back to 10 p.m., well, almost 10 p.m. Sorry for being late, folks. For our friends across the pond over in Europe, because we know, well, they are having some rough times right now with basic freedoms. Holy cow, what a mess. On that note, let's go ahead and take a look and see who the heck we have out there in the chat. Who's out there again? Sorry, folks, for being late. OBS production problems today. I want to welcome in Andy W. We got Anne-Marie A. Phils here along with Bradley. I see Brennan England and Brains. We got Carl Joe Garrison's here along with Kat. Eliza Teal's around. Thank you. Uh-oh. They can't see me in the back. Oh, start virtual camera. There we go. All right, we've got Fireflies here along with Gene. Sticco is in the chat, and he's in the back. Can't wait to talk with Gene today. We got Geraldine DeRazio, Hollywood Herald's here. Good to see you, Harold. We got J-Cat Meow, Kathy 1944. Kick-Ass-opoly is here. Close enough. We got King Bull, Megan Betts, Metal Gaming 420. Pass it around, my friend. Don't be a Bogart. We got Mr. Grimlock, Ms. Cussout, Nate Les here, along with Nathan Forrest, Patrick the Mysterious, not so mysterious to me, my friend, along with Roni Deal, Rainstorm Hunter. Sam's here, along with a bunch more people. We got Shelley Montgomery, Scooby Dooby Gooby, Sander Jute, the Stargazer, the Skywatch Signals here, along with Two Midgets on a Horse, Warrior Classes, Weedlanders here, along with X42B. If I missed you, sorry, everybody. I tried my best. It is just one of those days. Wow, my head is big. Fix this. Yeah, been one of those days, folks, trying to get the studio together and was recording on another Mac, which means I had to disconnect my main Mac and push it back together, sharing monitors between the two. Oh, God. What a fucking mess. Holy cow. But without any further ado, let's jump into the studio. We have one of our dear friends with us today. No, not that one, my friend. We've got someone better. No, I'm just joking. Let's get in here and see who we've got. Let's welcome in Gene Sticco. Gene, great to see you around. You've been through a lot lately with, the health emergency that came with your wife, Nat. But more importantly, after you were reaching out to some people in Russia, she got hit with something that's out of the ordinary. I would almost call it extraordinary based on your observations so far.
Yeah, it's been first of all, appreciate everybody. I guess this is the first time I've been on since all this went down to the end of January. It's been a hell of a, I guess, going on 2 weeks now. And, I've got to say it was, the initial emergency, and as that passed, I think it was the first Saturday after that, I was able to hop in the back chat here. It was after the show. It was late at night. I'd gotten in. I said, well, let me just see, do something, get my mind off things. And it's actually this crew that, Enoch and a couple of other folks who were back there as I was talking about what was happening, who brought my attention that, a lot of what I was describing sounded, and he said, well, do you have mold in the house? Said, no, but again, old home, you can always not find something. But it was having that test done both in the home and the next, and some tests they were able to do on her, that just set everything into a whirlwind. As she started getting better and started remembering things clearer in the days prior, people around the area that she wasn't familiar with.
Right.
The tests themselves, again, producing odd results. I posted about it on X, so we're talking about things that are common, not common together, certainly not common for Boston in the middle of winter, at an industrial concentration.
So we're talking about an industrial concentration of 6 different mold varieties in the middle of winter when you're barely, when you're below zero, when the winds are blowing and everything. And she gets down with a toxic industrial exposure to 6 different types of toxic mold spores at once.
Right. And they're not present anywhere. They're not in the HVAC system, not in floorboards. So there was an exposure somewhere.
But they haven't found it in the house.
So in a room that she frequents,
right,
which has access to the outside,
gotcha.
It has its own entrance. That is where the heaviest, where the only concentration of it was. And so then, on top
is there
of
a
that,
sign of like moisture inundation or anything like that in that area? No, it's a room that she does her music in that has its own door to go outside of the house. Is it covered with cameras by chance?
At that time, it was not.
Right.
And and then and going back again, it's a lot of circumstantial things. So going back, one night thinking, okay, well, let me go to the night that we had to take her out by ambulance, and noticing that there's a 72-hour window on both sides of that time that there's no front video, there's no ring camera video from, and then as I looked at the system was offline, so couldn't figure that out. It's hardwired. So I went outside and noticed that the infrared sensor was smashed in. Obviously something was used to like push on it the way it fell in, and then you can see.
So there we go. So this is your device, your ring camera that's on the front, and clearly someone smashed in.
So that was, so it was like pushed in. So there was like pressure applied at the top to push that in.
Right.
And then it damaged.
Oh, I can see that now. Let me go ahead and
moisture and everything.
Zoom that up here really quick. So here we go. So if we look at the device up close, you can see that the plastic is there. It was pushed in, so it's up close and blocking the IR sensor, kind of.
Yeah, and then, all of this outer shell was just like brittle, shattered, like in between that part that's tilted and the rest of it.
And you can see the moisture that came into the sensor down below.
Yeah, yeah. So, obviously that had been done for a while.
But then again, you haven't been having rain. You've just been having snow.
Right. Yeah, snow, ice, all the good stuff. And then knowing what the spores are and their half-lives, and sort of trying to work backwards. Now they say, well, so when was this exposure? When could it have been done? Or could she have had an exposure in the quantity that she did that could lead to the symptoms she experienced late that Sunday night? And they're like, oh, it would have had to been Monday or Tuesday. The Monday or Tuesday prior is when I was in DC.
So that's when it likely happened then.
Yeah. And she was basically at home. She doesn't recall going anywhere, because I actually had the vehicle. Our son has a vehicle too, but she doesn't recall going anywhere.
Yeah, that's just absolutely crazy. Are there any questions for anyone in the back on this as we're getting through this? I'm just updating it to show, you're back here today. It's an interesting situation, Gene.
It is, and again, trying to not jump to conclusions, all that good stuff. I mean, there's just a number of, just
possibilities of what it could be, but you can't rule anything out at this point.
Right. There's nothing, there's nothing you can go to the police with and be like, oh, listen, here's,
Yeah.
It's, it's been remediated. I've got, medical grade filters and devices and shit all over the house now.
Yeah. But it looks like you've updated your image for your profile picture with the burning city behind it, and you're taking no prisoners at this point.
No, I'm not. That's actually from the cover of my book Unconventional, the one about my oil and gas experience.
Right.
And so that pretty much is how I was feeling. I mean, that I pulled down the, X that first night, sitting there, and I was just, because, you get alerts and things like that. And I'm like, I don't need any distractions. And in the moment, I just felt like this was life-changing in the sense of, I've described it as the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. Never mind, it's your wife or any loved one or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, there's no coming back from this. Whatever this thing is, there's going to be something permanent that's part of this. And so I was just like, I don't need any distractions. I don't need any of this. I got to focus 100% on this. And I was like, freaking deactivate, delete, blah, blah, blah. I don't want any distractions. And then, like I said, by Thursday, it was like a light switch, changed. And again, doctors were all like, yeah, that is kind of strange, but they had no,
So did it get in through her nose, or was it through touch? Was it in her lungs? But it was in her bloodstream, though, right?
Yeah. So it's, through urinalysis that they were finally able to, make the determination. But it was like specific, it was one of those things. If it didn't specifically ask, it wasn't even under consideration. Which again is a credit to the vast intelligence of your audience.
Yeah. One thing I've learned, Gene, going through a lot of different stuff with divorce and other things in my past as well, talking about it helps. It brings in other points of view that you may not have and may not see. And it can bring you to help you see things that are there and available or just around you that you'll never get. Because one thing we have also always learned is doctors don't perfect medicine, they practice medicine. So no doctor is perfect. They're not going to look under a rock potentially unless you guide them to.
Yeah, no, exactly. And even going through all of the trying to piece this together, and the oddities, let's say, and there are people who are, reach out and they're like, hey, listen, it kind of just give you a little bit of a sense check, right? Make sure you're not imagining things, make sure you're not, and it's all good stuff. I've lived with my past life, I've lived under threat of harm and been chased, all over the world, literally. And so I have a lot of that with me in my day-to-day life anyway. That's just a residual carryover from my past life.
Right.
And just when you think you kind of know it all, or the neighborhood or whatever, life steps in and kicks you in the balls a little bit and reminds you that there's remind you where you fell short, maybe.
Have you reached out yet to local or federal law enforcement potentially about this?
No, because again, as I put everything together, let me correct that in a sense. I have friends in the field with whom I have discussed it, and what is there a path to take? There's certainly we can file a report, and write in there whatever we believe, but there's but there's no crime. There's no evidence of a crime. There's no, there's nothing to look into. That can't just be like, oh, well, something, you went out somewhere, something got dragged in. As somebody asked about dogs, yes, but they're all home, and it's not something that got to dedicate a whole lot of time to, because especially I go in and start talking about, I do this UFO stuff, and they're the Russians, and we're contacting Russians, and blah, blah, Like I said, the sources the connections I have are good friends of, they know where I come out of and everything. So if something were to develop, yeah, that option's there. So for now, it's just collecting, documenting, and monitoring, let's say.
Yeah, it seems that way. Daryl, you have your hand up, my friend. Go ahead.
Yeah, Gene, I'm glad to hear Nat is on the mend.
Thanks.
Number one. Number two, whose throat are you going to slash?
Me?
Yeah. Wait, I think I took note of or we all took note of your X post.
That was so my old and on Instagram, my old moniker too, or handle was the retired pirate. And, for decades, people called me pirate, and I love the whole history of it and everything like that. And all that old stuff just got reignited and reinvigorated in me. And, as I said on another show, there's always those situations, I've had those situations in the past, let's say, where somebody was, their interpretation of the questioning was that, my intent was to bring them into court. And I'm like, I have no intention of bringing you to court. So.
Okay. Well, I kind of assumed that you had a particular hypothesis that you were running with that kind of caused that tweet to be made or X to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was just the thing of, I've been, as we've been doing this, I want to be a nice guy, and I want to, give people the benefit of the doubt on things. I want to, some ways I want to make waves, other ways I don't. And taking all that stuff down, and then when Nat was, in a good place talking about it, and she's like, "No, we've got to, now we've really got to go on. We've really got to keep pushing this."
Right.
And if this, and if it was deliberate, then
right,
all the more reason.
Right.
And watch out. So in one way or another, whether it was deliberate or not doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because it was enough to be like,
right.
Yeah, right there. No more Mr. Nice Guy. And
have you considered reaching out to the local health department, whoever manages or goes after things that are going on for, if you want to call it, looking over rentals and different stuff along those lines, or even the CDC, to see what kind of reports you could possibly find in the area for mold exposures that would happen, to see, is this a one-time thing, or is this something that's a scatter map in the area?
Yeah. So the contractor that I used,
right,
is connected in all of those things, and again they're making appropriate connections in sharing the information, I guess to say,
right.
in that way. They've certainly given the all clear. They're like, no, there's like nothing here, but yeah, it's kind of weird. So
I'd even say just on for shits and giggles, reach out to something larger. There may be something more of a government level, whatever it is. They may have better sniffing devices to try and figure out what went on. Because again, you had mentioned in some of your posts that, yeah, they could have it normal being one strain, maybe 3, no more, but 6 different strains, and a high industrial toxic level means she had gotten a massive dose of something,
yeah,
at the same time. Not that she'll get one over here or another one over here or a different one. She got all 6 at once.
Yeah. So we're, like I said, again, we've got stuff going on with that. So
yeah.
And can I ask, you've got some video that's missing. You've got a Ring doorbell that's cracked. That all sounds all this sounds obviously very suspicious.
Yeah,
I understand the tweet now.
Yeah.
Don't fuck around with me.
Yeah. Ty Roberts with Total Disclosure Podcast. He was over, or he stopped by early this morning to see us, and I was showing him the photos, a couple of other ones, and showed him that timeline of just right beforehand. There's live footage, then boom,
72 hours, which means potentially. Have you reached out? Is the device still up there, or have you replaced it at this point?
It's been replaced, yeah.
Yeah. It's just odd that it was missing for 72 hours before and after, and then it started working again.
Yeah, well, and then it kind of went offline again. So, and that's where, I was like, well, what the hell?
And scrubbing back through everything, there aren't any other gaps in the footage up until that point.
No, everything seemed normal. It was recording over the course of 30 days. It's not usually a main entrance. We usually come along the side of the house. So it's not something I necessarily, would pass every day.
Yeah.
But, it picks up the Amazon deliveries. It picks up the truck, cars going down the street. It's, I've got it all zoned off and things like that on what it's going to alarm on and all the rest of it. Like,
now someone in the back was mentioning yesterday, I believe, that Wise has cameras that you can get to push stuff to the cloud. They're pretty cheap off of Amazon. They have some of the best night vision. Actually, a lot of people seeing orbs flying around with these things, but they also have the ability to go ahead and put micro SD cards in there. So in addition to going to the cloud, it also buffers everything locally on the devices.
No,
that was me. And that's what I do. I have 2 places for that video.
Yeah. Especially with those X's knocking on your door, Daryl.
yeah. That really needs it. I mean,
and there's some other things. But
I mean, all that, again, I'm not so concerned about recording it as I am on intercepting.
Yeah. Exactly. Intercepting and eliminating the risk. Yeah. Which is a good thing. Absolutely. Well, it's great to have you back here, and I'll have you back for a bit. You can hear it, this whole thing is still weighing on you greatly, and all we can do is give you our best hopes and wishes and send you love and light, because you're going through a lot, and hopefully, with the right remote viewers looking at this, we can maybe get to the bottom and figure out potentially what went on.
Yeah, all that would be interesting, and I appreciate all the feedback. Yeah, it's I've started again. I was on a couple of spaces and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's just been some early mornings and things like that. So
it gives you a break away from the monotony you're going through. You're still focusing on it, but you're just putting your head above water here or there to almost give your mind a rest.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why I figured you'd pop on here for a little bit. I'll probably pop off, and I'm gonna make some scallops and risotto tonight. I think.
That sounds good.
Any
bacon in there too?
The rest of the show. What's that?
Any bacon in there too?
No, I tend to not do that.
Okay.
I'm a traditionalist.
Okay. Everything tastes better with bacon, especially scallops, just saying. Well, it's great having you here. I appreciate you stopping in and everything. We can just get on with the show then and see where stuff's going. If you want to hang out, that's cool. But if you need to take off, Godspeed to you, my friend.
I will. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Somebody sent a super chat, it looks like.
Yeah, we had one coming in from, let me go ahead and bring these up here. We got one from Faiswell for $50.
Thank you.
Just popping up. Why is that not popping up? Yeah. Oh, shit. Is this? Oh, I crashed again, didn't I? OBS crashed again. Son of a bitch. I need to get off this new version of OBS, but I couldn't do it before the show. Let's go to force quit. I'll blame it on the CIA again.
There you go.
All right. Looks like we got hit by the deep state, my friend. Sorry about that. Yeah, things kind of crashed. Not sure what's going on. I've got a different version of OBS up and running, and clearly I am paying the price. Thank you, Gene, for letting the audience know that, yeah, we're still here, but I'm just trying to get this thing back set up again into a format that I could potentially use. Yeah, that's what I get for updating to a beta version of free software. You know how that goes. We're talking about the super chats. First, we had one from FaZe Will. Thank you very much. And another one coming from the Coin 405, coming from our friend in Sweden. Just want to send my support and love to you and your wife, Jean. Thank you very much. We appreciate that, the Coin.
Yeah, thanks so much. No, it means a lot. It's great to. Everybody's just been so concerned and kind and everything. So it's very. We talk about community. Those are the things that make you feel it. So.
Exactly. Well, we lost some viewers along the way, but that's okay. Shit happens apparently when the stream crashes. Oh, well, let's...
Thomas, your camera's not in the back.
Oh, sorry about that. It is...
It's not up either.
Oh, no. So. Here we go. It's back on again. Now you can see it. It's one of those days, folks. It's not fuck you Friday. It's shit on you Saturday. If it could go wrong, Brennan England, thank you very much for the Australian $10. We appreciate your love and support for what we do here. Andy, crazy things going on everywhere with Gene. We appreciate you stopping by today. And but we've got other stuff we're going to start moving on to right now. If I can go ahead and find the right browser and bring it up, we can go ahead and go through some of my bookmarks about some of the stuff we want to go ahead and talk about here today. Yeah, that killed the audience. We're getting good audience numbers, and then frickin' OBS frickin' locks up again. It's been... I accidentally upgraded to the latest version of Mac OS, which is 26. I was on the one before it, and it was fine. What is the overall thing? If it works, Andy, don't fucking touch anything. I mean, I'm like 6 months after this operating system came out. I'm still having to use a version of the driver for my video capture card that's a year and a half old because all the new ones, for some reason, don't want to install on my machine. They install, but it doesn't work. Oh.
I'm going to have to say, stop messing around with it before the show. Do after show.
Yeah.
And could you put a link up to the back as well, Thomas, please?
Oh, no, it's already. No, it's not there. I'm sorry, I had it there before. I forgot to pin it. Let me. Fuck. God damn it.
Yourself.
And I just lost all the names, so everyone's name is going to be small now at this point. This is just not my day. So let me put this back in the chat again. The names are going to be small. Sorry, folks. I'm not going to fuck with it now. It's good enough. It's bad enough Google changed it where I have to put important on all that kind of stuff. Thank you, Stargazer 46 and 2. Yeah, welcome to my life. All right. All right. We're going to go through some stuff in order that I've got. We've got some UK stuff that people in UK are going to love because, well, yes, it's a mess in the UK right now, Andy, and I know you may not be able to talk on some of this stuff, except you could talk around it and we'll understand what you're kind of saying in a negative fashion. We'll say everything that you say is a negative, and we'll flip that to what you actually mean as a positive. Let's get to it. All right. I need to make some people some mods.
It's upside down world today.
Let's get. Oh, it's upside down world. I need to go to the guests and I need to go make some mods really quick. I need add as a co-host. Daryl, you've got El Kabong. Just don't pass it along to everybody now because you know what happens.
Yes, we don't want to get passing around too much. Also, you know your mic isn't working in the back, right?
Oh, it is now. Can you hear me now? Yeah, it was in the Yeah, folks. I swear I've had caffeine today, but it's like I need the Adderall in a double dose.
I think it's the spirit of cupcake. These things happened back in those days.
Cupcake, right here on my desk every show. She never leaves. She's never too far away. Little girl.
Great.
Oh, yeah. And Buddy's up in the front. From the old days. Let's go ahead and get to this. Where is OBS? Okay, I'm going to fix OBS first. I need to go ahead and tell it to unlock the docs so I can make it and move my docs around where I need to for my scenes and my sources. Oh, don't you son of a bitch. Sources, don't want to go there. You want to go... There you go. Bitch. All right. I'm sorry, Mocha's not here, but... In spirit she is. Son of a bitch. There we go. All right, let's get into this. Okay, let me see if I can make this wide enough and actually read the name of the scenes I've got going here from where I'm at in Slobs. No. And OBS, where am I at? Interview away. No, I want to get to desktop. Thomas, here we go. First one. This is true. This is a fact. Come on, you son of a bitch. I'm dealing with an operating system that doesn't want to. Oh, God. I got fucking Mac OS 26. All right. UK. It's common for Englishmen to get sentenced more time in prison for offensive social media comments than Pakistani grooming gang members receive for the rape of young girls. Yeah, I got to make sure I don't say that thing. But yeah, that's what goes on in the UK, unfortunately. Let's get out of this post. Let's go through it. If any of you're in the tech place, Daryl, you don't understand. You ever watch anything from Linus Tech Tips?
I've seen the guy. I follow a few channels like this.
Yeah. He was, this is a guy who was there for like 10 years, was there at the very starting of Linus Tech Tips. He started working for him back in high school, but he had to leave after a while. He wasn't getting the raises like he should as time goes on. Meanwhile, he mentioned that Linus was buying his third house at the time and that he couldn't even afford his own house, so he had to move on. But Linus came back with some rather interesting comments that isn't going to go well on him, saying, I checked my wallet. I checked my bank account. I checked all 3 of my houses. There were no fucks left in any of them, meaning he doesn't give a fuck about his prior employee and the hard time he was having trying to build a life for himself when he was going ahead and contributing and building a life for Linus. Gotta love people like that. All right. Well, here's another one. Apparently, Keir Starmer is, well, it looks like I was right. The Ukrainian was Starmer's rent boy. Rent boy. Are you familiar with that term, Andy?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Do tell.
Yeah, so breaking, there are rumors that the Sun newspaper has chats and voice notes between Keir Starmer's arsonist and his escort client. If this is true, it will finish Starmer. Andy, do you know what they mean by the arsonist? Did someone try and burn his house?
Yes, they did. He doesn't live there now. One of his sister-in-law rented it off him after because obviously when they, as with your president, once they become leader, president or prime minister, they then leave their homes and move into either the White House or here in the UK, number 10. And I believe that he lets his property out to a member of his family.
Right.
And some individuals tried to burn it down last year. So, yes, there are interesting stories in the news about this.
Yeah, and it seems that, well, he likes them young and white. He likes his rent boys. That's interesting to say the least. Let's move on. What else we've got going on? Also, Rupert Lowe confirmed he was pushing for private prosecutions against the people in Parliament and the government who were covering up all the grooming gangs against. Basically, I guess it's a religious thing. They're not going ahead and touching their own little girls that are Muslim. They are attacking the white girls as a matter of whiteophobia. And they're attacking them potentially to go ahead and doing their grooming on them, their essential rape that's going on. But it's Elon Musk has had enough. He came out and said, I would like to help fund legal actions against corrupt officials who aided and abetted the rape of Britain. This is brilliant news. Between these two men, we might finally see people face real justice. Well, if those who are in charge right now are still in charge and those judges, getting a good ruling on this is going to be kind of hard. It seems like the books are stacked against the public, Andy? Or not quite?
I'm going to withhold my comments on this.
Just say, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? I don't know. I only get what the press is telling me. So, I'm just a poor little person who comes on here.
Oh,
yeah. So
yeah,
I know nothing.
Well, in other words, coming from the Telegraph, Trump official, Brits' free speech victims could seek asylum in the United States. So we're opening the doors to people to come in an asylum to the United States from the United Kingdom who are freeing, being victims of free speech. They can come in. That means you're going to get a credit card with money on it every month. You're going to get government paid housing and everything else, just like all the other immigrants who come into this country. Crazy stuff. Anything else on the UK? Well, shifting focus back to the United States, we'll get here in a second, my friends. Democrats have been insane for a long time. Hate to say it. In 2020, 62% of Democrats said they prefer a giant meteor to strike the earth and extinguish all human life than see President Trump get reelected. Holy shit. All right. Talking about the Epstein files, it gets deeper, my friends. It really does. The Epstein files just got darker. Yes, folks, internal FBI discussions from 2025 allegedly show, quote, clear and specific guidance to redact images tied to former U.S. presidents, a Secretary of State, and major celebrities. Gee, I wonder who that Secretary of State could be. Could it be Hillary? You never know. Let's go ahead and take a look at the actual document here and zoom it up. And sure enough, at the bottom, IMD-RDS neared clear and specific guidance to redact those photographs. Some photographs depict victims, unknown identified females and males, male victims for that matter, U.S. presidents, Secretary of State, and other celebrities. Wow. Could that hearing be coming forward against good old Hillary and Bill when they're bringing them out to go ahead and get them on questions on camera? It could have some explosive results that a lot of people may have not have been realizing. Well, we've all had. There is a there. Let's get back to what we're talking about and everything UFOs and the latest UFO news we've got coming out today. No. All right, we got a short clip here of Dr. Eric Davis. Says George H.W. Bush, freaking criminal, lock him up and elect him to the gas chamber is what I had in my car when he was running for office. H.W. Bush was briefed as a CIA director on the 1964 Holloman Air Force Base UAP landings, and Bush confirmed this to Davis. A humanoid, non-human intelligence reportedly exited the craft and met with informed intel officials. Well, let's go ahead and see where this clip, and thanks to Sol for this. I'm going to make sure there's no Disclosure Tonight logo on this one when we're showing it. We'll show the Sol logo. I think we should be fine. Let's just take it and bring it to full screen with myself down here, and let's go ahead and play this clip. Here we go, folks.
I got in contact with him by phone, with former President Bush by phone. And just to be sure, when I say President Bush or former President Bush, I'm referring to the senior, not the junior, not W, but George Herbert Walker Bush. W. And GHWB. And
George W.
And so we had a series of phone calls where he would call me a lot, and he'd be in transit somewhere, and he would have some time to chat with me. And so we would probably have about 20, 30 minutes to chat, maybe even less several times. And I would cover a lot of the significant topics. Now, the points of focus here was his induction his confirmation as the new CIA director in the Ford administration. And so he's now the incoming CIA director, and he's now being officially briefed by his directorate chiefs. Those are the deputy director of the Directorate of Intelligence, Science and Technology, operations, this and that and the other thing. And so during one of his briefings, he meets with his DOD liaison officer. And his DOD liaison officer is a uniformed officer who was not identified to me. I don't know what rank the man was, but he's uniformed service. And he comes over from the Pentagon because he liaisons in his job serving the Secretary of Defense. And actually, back in those days, he would have been in Chris Mellon's old job. He would have been the Assistant Deputy Secretary of Defense for Intelligence. I think that's the title. But that was the number 3 man or number 3 position in all of the DOD's structure. So this guy worked for that individual. And his job is to liaison with the CIA director or any of his subordinates that he designates. So Bush is getting read in to get up to speed on everything. He's starting his new job at the CIA, and the liaison officer mistakenly thought that Bush had been read in on the UAP subject. And so he started blabbing off about the latest on that. And Bush said, no, wait a minute, what are we talking about here? And the liaison officer told him, I thought you had been briefed on this by your senior staff. And he said, no, actually, I haven't been briefed on that topic if yet, or if at all, I have not. And so the liaison officer then had already let loose the information. So he went ahead and completed the rest of that briefing. And that's when Bush learned about a landing at an Air Force base in New Mexico by a UFO, humanoid type, non-human intelligence came off the craft and actually met with uniformed senior Air Force officers and some civilian CIA personnel. And they went off.
And you're referring to an event that is often just called the Holloman landing.
The
Holloman Air Force Base in April of 1964.
That's right.
There we go. And if we can get into this, we got to Gainer Andrews saying we represent one side of politics. Well, a little bit, but we try to get to it. But if we can, coming into this particular piece, we've got, if we take a look here, we did put out a survey for audience while this was going on. Let me go ahead and bring up our sound effects. Hey, Google, set a timer for 30 seconds, please. Okay, Google. Oh, Google's unplugged. Never mind. We'll deal with that later, unless Daryl's Google goes off. Dr. Eric Davis's credibility. Absolutely, or not a chance in hell. Looks like we've got 62% of our audience is saying that, yes, Dr. Eric Davis's credibility for what he's talking about is absolutely, and 38% of our audience is saying not a chance in hells. Andy, your thoughts? Where would you vote on this one?
I actually voted not a chance in hell, but I never really followed him a great deal. So, you know, he's come from sort of the government side of it. You know, it's always a thing with this, isn't it? You know, we have these characters come out or, you know, turn up from wherever they come from, and you know, you've always got to be a little bit dubious of everything they've got to say.
Out of all the people that have come forward to a certain degree, he's actually someone who's probably very credible, considering his science degrees, what he knows, his involvement in the government. He's probably someone who is working to bring out the truth. At least in my humble opinion. The audience says so as well, but everyone can take their own place. Daryl, go ahead.
He's had plenty of people that he's interacted with that I've seen videos of over the years that nobody says he's wrong about anything. And I don't know if you've ever seen this. He was in Austin, Texas with a few other scientists, and he was talking about his scientific work. And there's no doubt he's credible from that standpoint. And I think from a lot of other standpoints, like was it the Davis Wilson memo or whatever?
Right.
A lot of people that are credible have said that's for real. So I tend to lean on the fact that I tend to lean on that he's credible. He does talk like this stuff is on the back of his hand. You know what I mean? So people, when they make stuff up, you see their eyes wandering, and they kind of,
But he does talk about it regularly, and his consistency about what he talks about never changes. It's always very rock solid, like he's recalling things that have actually happened.
Right.
All right.
He's either really, really crazy or he's not honest.
Or it's really, really smart, which could mean he's very, very crazy.
Right, sure.
Which happens a lot of times. All right, let's go ahead and move on this one. We've got there, yes. If you missed it, yes, the Aurora Borealis has been cranking the last couple nights. So granted, it's all the way up in Alaska and up in Sweden, but the light shows have been absolutely stupendous. Follow my feed at Thomas L. Fessler over on X if you want to get caught up to date on the latest stuff. I cover this on a regular basis. Let's move on. We talked about the meteor strike. We talked about that one. No, get past there. All right. And a dramatic announcement being totally ignored by the MSM, which is the mainstream media. Let me move this across a little bit. Advanced UK leader Ben Habib has just announced as PM, if he gets there, he will ban Shira courts, which they should, ban public calls to prayer. Next one, ban the burqa and the niqab, also ban first cousin marriage, which should be banned. Granted, the United Kingdom just hired their first expert on cousin marriage. Which is just crazy, but you know what? Things in the UK are overboard. Yes, in the UK, evidence is mounting that suggests Muslims spend EID, whatever. Do you know what the EID is, Andy?
Eid is. I'm going to use their version of Christmas. Not that they believe in obviously what we believe, but it's
a religious holiday.
It's their main religious holiday.
So the Muslims spend EID by inviting their families around to wrap little white girls. Let's go ahead and listen to this piece from GB News, which we can go ahead and cover. It sounds pretty dastardly, but you never know what's going on and what's being covered up. Let's play it, folks, because we can in the United States.
The fact that specifically around Eid as well, I'll come to you first on this, Emmett, that there's testimony that basically some Pakistani men in Britain celebrated Eid by inviting their dads, cousins, brothers, etc. around so that they could abuse young working class white girls.
Yeah, I mean, years ago, I did an interview with a woman who was a grooming gang survivor. She remained anonymous, but she spoke about the religious motivations behind what her attackers were doing to her, the sorts of names that they would call her. I kind of really want to say them repeat them on television. But the motivation was clearly religious and clearly racist against her because she was a young white woman. In her case, she actually wasn't from a sort of vulnerable background. She was a fairly middle class background. And the evidence seems to be overwhelming when you hear these stories that there is a religious motivation there. And it's not just that the authorities didn't want to act because they were afraid of being accused of racism. I think in some cases they were quite clearly afraid of being called Islamophobic. And the idea—
What the fuck? Really, they're actually afraid of being called Islamophobic for calling out crime, but honestly, it should be Christian-phobic, whatever you want to call it, or UK-phobic, where they're attacking people who are, long-term residents of the United Kingdom and allowing it to go on because they're afraid of fucking offending people.
That you have to refer to them even as Asian grooming gangs. So it's not Japanese people that are predominantly doing this. So we've even in the way that we've been repeatedly told, we're not allowed to even call them Asian grooming gang, but even that isn't quite accurate, is it?
Yeah.
So I think, good on Rupert Lowe for actually taking the initiative and doing this, because I think it's an absolute disgrace that the government haven't stepped up to the plate and done this properly.
Yeah.
And it just shows how much the people in the UK are repressed and their ability to go ahead and talk about this, that this stuff kind of goes on and continues because anyone who speaks out against it especially on social media, gets brought in and locked up in jail. And it's not the people who are, yes, cover your mouth, Andy. It's not the people who are the victims or the victims. It's the victims or the victims' families that are getting arrested for saying things, not the actual abusers themselves. So it just shows you how fucked up things really are. And it's like one of those moments, Andy, where you're covering your mouth because you'd say things that would get your ass in trouble, which is really a shame. All right, so moving off from that as I'm just going through my feed. Yes, there's been some amazing Aurora Borealis. I believe this one is from, where did it go from? Come on, where'd you go? This came from Northern Skies. This is up in Alaska. There were some great freaking auroras watching live last night. Yeah, we're in a point where we're getting a lot of solar events going on. And sorry if I'm mixing things up, or we're just going through. This is a review of the week, and there's a lot of stuff out there. All right, so this is the post where Elon Musk said officially, "I would help fund legal actions against corrupt officials who aided and abetted the rape of Britain per the government inquiry." Please reply below for consideration. And he's going at it, and he is out there for the people. Meanwhile, some more solar things are going on. All right, so we've got a video here coming from our dear friend Red Panicuala over on X, saying he's got a little video here coming from News Nation talking about the 2 new UFO videos emerged by U.S. military systems. We're talking about the first one that came out earlier this week that showed the triangle formation of UFOs, followed by the next one, which had the Tic Tac that we covered last night. Let's see where News Nation goes ahead and takes this, Andy. Maybe you can be able to talk about this one without being afraid. Doesn't that suck, though? You can't talk about stuff because you're afraid from the government coming and busting down your door and hauling your ass away for speaking your mind about how you see what's going on out there.
Well, I will say, it's yeah, you can't even debate. I could debate with you about things on here, but potentially that could be seen as me being, whatever you want, racist or whatever. We are supposedly the land of, democracy, the original democracy, and the rule of law that practically most decent countries follow. Stems from the law that was, created here. So, yeah, if you can't speak about things, then, you do get issues come up.
Yeah.
We found that throughout history. If people aren't talking, then, things happen. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Good
It's a mess.
Bad, yeah.
Yeah. We got you, my friend. That's why if you cover your mouth or talk the opposite of what's going on, we understand where you're coming from because you're basically censored.
I'd say yes. I might get in trouble for that, but yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately. And you want to protect yourself and your family, which is well within your rights of what you want to do. So let's go ahead and play this clip. Here we go.
Both recordings show government-filmed objects that were officially designated as UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena, and they weren't meant to be seen by the public. Now, both videos were recorded by MQ-9 Reaper drones, and both show objects making movements that Corbell says defy basic physics. The first video dates back to August of 2012. It's recorded over the Persian Gulf using infrared sensors. It shows 3 objects moving in what appears to be a triangular formation, and at one point, one of the objects falls back, then it suddenly accelerates forward again, kind of like in a slingshot motion to rejoin the other 2. Weird. The second video, more recent, 2021, recorded during a U.S. drone mission over southern Syria. And in this footage, you have a single object that's tracked by a weapons-grade targeting system. Now, it moves steadily at first, then suddenly changes direction, accelerates out of frame at what analysts describe as extreme speed. There's no visible propulsion. News Nation has not independently verified the authenticity of these videos. The Pentagon has not confirmed them or even commented. But what are we actually seeing in these videos? Nick Pope's here, investigated UAPs for the UK Ministry of Defense. Nick, good to see you.
There we go, a UK friend. Nick Pope on a rope is here. Let's see what he has to say.
See you. These the real deal?
Yes, I think so. Jeremy and George, the journalists concerned, have a proven track record of getting authentic Pentagon footage into the public domain. And when you see these sorts of things just move in a straight line at a constant speed, sure, you can say balloons, birds, but as you said in your intro, the Pentagon itself put this into the UAP category, unidentified anomalous phenomena, and that's what we're looking at.
Okay, let me ask you the million-dollar question. Is this a piece of technology, advanced technology? I mean, we're talking about 2012, we're talking about 2021, or is this something else? Is this from outer, extraterrestrial?
As much as I'd love to believe that it was extraterrestrial, Occam's razor states that the simplest and most likely explanation is usually the correct one. These were Middle East videos in one of the most crowded areas of sky when it comes to cutting-edge aerospace technology, aircraft, drones. The United States has a lot there because the US is there. China and Russia are probably there spying on them. Iran is there too. So my best estimate has got to be this is our own terrestrial tech.
Well, I mean, they are sensitive military regions, could be of interest if it wasn't human-made. I mean, but that's the question. Have you seen technology like this that it could do something like this? No propulsion?
Well, you know, we can't tell that much just by looking at the videos themselves. You know, behind the scenes, there's probably more analysis that's been done by intelligence community imagery analysts, and that's probably classified. But, you know, there are things flying out there that will not be public knowledge for 10, 15, 20 years after the event. So there's a lot of spooky stuff flying right now.
And it's a good, I think that was a pun, but I like that. But let me ask you a question. Do you think that it wasn't meant for the public to see? Was it not meant for the public to see because of the sensitive military technology? I mean, Jeremy Corbell says the footage came from intelligence archives. You tell me, is that what we're dealing with, that they were concerned that this could compromise us?
Well, I think Jeremy and George are both very careful that they follow the law in this, as are the people concerned who gave them the videos. That being said, I know a lot of people in the military who see these sorts of things and are aware of them, are very frustrated at what they see as the slow pace of UAP disclosure. And so, you know, Jeremy and George often are a kind of conduit for getting this material out. So let's have a wider debate about it.
So he's calling it geese, yet the different situation where we're showing it right here in this video clip, when it actually goes and accelerates and goes off screen while the regular background and everything is still there and in place, that clearly isn't geese, but apparently Nick Pope can't speak to that.
For getting this material out.
Boom.
So let's have a wider debate about it. Let's get Congress looking at it. Let's get other media outlets looking at it. And let's get a kind of brains trust of experts trying to figure out what we're looking at here.
Nick, you are brilliant. I love having you on, but I will tell you, I still think that this could be something else. That's just my take. I could be 100% wrong. We shall see. But I appreciate the conversation, as always.
Yes, great to see Nick Pope. May not be the thing we're looking for and agree with. Yes, it could potentially be geese, but how many geese are flying over Iran at this time of year? Interesting, but I guess we need to go ahead and take a look at that a little bit closer to see what's going on. But that Tic Tac video from 2021, definitely something that is there. Who do we got coming in? We let him in. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next thing. Yes, more killer auroras coming south here in Beaver, Alaska. Yeah, some great stuff happening out there, folks. The solar storms are not over yet. We've still got more things coming on. Can't wait to see where it's all going to go. Let's move on a bit more. All right, we've got that one from, again, this one was last night. Fucking amazing. Amazing stuff. I watched some of this stuff live coming out of Sweden, then coming out of Greenland. Not so much from the United States, but from Alaska, yes, absolutely. What else we've got here? All right, so this is from yesterday. If you watch yesterday's show, we'll play it again. But this is Laura Trump talking about she's heard that disclosure's coming sometime in July, which aligns with what the UK broadcaster had brought up before. And let's see what good old Laura has to say. And granted, a majority of our audience says, no, this isn't going to happen. This is coming from a Trump. Just note that. Let's see what good old Laura has to say. I'll smile harder, folks.
What do you or the president know about UFOs? Can you share? I hear that the president has something in the queue to share with us about all of this. Now, truth be told, I'm trying to remember how long ago it was. It may have been right after he left office, after the first term. I remember Eric being like, all right, what can you tell us? And he was a little hesitant to give us any real info, which makes me think like he's got a lot of info out there and he's waiting for the right time to drop it. And maybe this is going to be the time, because I keep seeing all these stories about how he's got some like UFO speech that he's got queued up, and you know, we all should just kind of sit back and wait. Now, here's the thing I'll say. What do I know about UFOs? What I know is that our universe is so enormous. It actually, if I start thinking about it, it makes me a little crazy. You think about just our solar system, okay? And then you think about how many solar systems like ours are in our galaxy. And then you think about how many galaxies are in this universe. The whole thing is just, it's kind of like mind-boggling. So the idea that the only form of intelligent life out there is us, that we're like twerking on TikTok and stuff, that's it. I don't know. I find it hard to believe. I fully believe that there's other life out there throughout the universe. And if you look at some of the like prophets, you know, these are people hundreds of years ago, or I don't even know how long ago. A lot of them say that sometime soon we're supposed to have some sort of an interaction with another form of life from outside of our planet. So I don't know. I fully believe there's more out there. I think it would be a heck of a waste of space if it's just us here and we're doing like dumb challenges and again, like just twerk.
Well, at least she's not talking about the waste of space between her ears. Oh, I said it. Oh, let's move on. What else, Daryl? We're all thinking that, aren't we?
Well, I was thinking about how much of the bottle of wine has gone under the desk. That's what I was wondering.
Oh, no, she keeps it in the coffee cup.
No, right. Well, but she's got to refill it. So,
well, somebody has to refill it and keep her supplied, you know, change it out. No one pays attention. Yes, Kathy, she has nice hair. All right. We have another clip here coming from UAP watchers. Danny Sheehan's catastrophic disclosure. People would be jumping out of their windows. I don't think so. We pulled a survey on this last night, but let's go ahead and play it for our UK friends again. Let's play this clip. And actually, you know what? Got enough of these clips. We've been replaying the same clips we've got going before. We've got a video we need to play called the disaster cycle. More importantly, the evidence of the disaster cycle. Let's go ahead and get this one up here. We're going to play half of this today because it's a long one. But you know what? I think we all deserve to go ahead and see this because it talks about what is coming our way. If I could just find fucking quick time there. That's not it. Oh, here it is, the disaster cycle. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way, bring this up. Let's play this clip. This is coming to us from a media partner over at Suspicious Observers. We played the first one earlier this week. We're going to play the next half of this one because this one is a full doozy, not just talking about the actual what's going on in the disaster cycle, potentially, but talking about the evidence that's all leading us there. On that note, let's go ahead and play this video and get into it, folks. I think you'll enjoy this. Here we go.
I think it's important to know about the Earth turning over and the micronova and how the government has hidden this and how billionaires are preparing. And this is exactly what religions have told us is going to happen to our culture. It's going to happen to the sky, going to happen to the sun. Revelation 16:8, and the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the sun, and the power was given unto him to scorch men with fire. A third of the stars disappearing from the sky. They knew the difference between stars and meteors. A third of the stars coming down is not meteors. That's the Earth going like this, and part of the sky you could see before no longer visible. The Earth swaying to and fro like a drunkard. You put all these things together and you have to wonder, wait a minute, not only does the math say this is how it plays out, the physics and the chemistry says this is how it plays out. This is what we're watching. Oh, and by the way, they knew this a couple thousand years ago and put it in a book.
The disaster cycle, scientific discussion. Recently, many of you saw the Disaster Cycle documentary, which was more made for the layman. This is the high-level scientific discussion, and within it are the facts derived from the connections between over 1,000 peer-reviewed citations. Now, we're not going to show you all of those papers and all of the citations for all of the affirmative facts stated herein. That would take 4 to 5 days. We have been meticulously going over them day by day in the morning news, which has come out 365 days a year since 2011, in our various summary videos, our various publications, and most notably our most recent book, where all of the citations are put together in one place. This video will just be the affirmative facts. You can hunt down those citations yourself. But let's get started with the sun. Because to begin, we have to start thinking about the sun in a different way than most people think about the sun. Most people think about the sun in terms of light. The visible light, it lights up the world, day versus night. And when they go beyond the visible light, they're thinking about ultraviolet light, photosynthesis, skin burns, suntan, melatonin production. This is very real. This is very important, but it is not the entire picture. Because you get a little bit beyond the visible and ultraviolet wavelengths to the X-ray light. This is very important and highly variable from the sun. And there's not just light energy coming from the sun, but particle energy as well. Protons, electrons, ions. While the sun is absolutely putting out light in every single direction, all the time, it is also putting out particles, a particle emission called the solar wind. It is made of protons, charged hydrogen, electrons, charged helium, all of these subatomic or ionic tiny little bits of particulate matter. Most of them energized as well, and this is streaming out in all directions, just like the light from the sun. Now, what's interesting is while the light that we normally think of leaving the sun is relatively constant, the particle emission from the sun is not. For example, let's go about down to maybe Earth size here at the surface of the sun, and we see these black dots. These are called sunspots, and what they are essentially are highly magnetic areas. Now, what's interesting is that the surface and the atmosphere of the sun, it's all those charged particles that are highly reactive to magnetism. So when these sunspots appear and they like to grow and move around quite a bit, what is that magnetism doing? Well, we have ways to look at that as well on ultraviolet light. These arcs connect sunspot to sunspot, and when they move around those sunspots, sometimes these arcs can collide. And given that these arcs, powerful magnetism, we're talking about these sunspots that are the size of the Earth. Imagine how powerful these magnetic arcs actually are. They are surging electromagnetic plasma to near relativistic speeds already, and then they crash into one another and we get a solar flare. Solar flares are planet-sized explosions of X-rays. This happens when that activity at the sunspot becomes too chaotic. There's one of those collisions, a destabilization, and an explosion of the stored magnetic energy, again in the form of X-rays. This, as you can probably see here, tends to push out other charged particles, that plasma in the sun's atmosphere, which adds to the particle emission of the solar wind and can be a faster, more dense shock wave that heads out into space. The other way that we can get one of these coronal mass ejections, or CMEs, is from a filament eruption. A filament is a thin rope, kind of like a odd-shaped cloud of plasma on the sun. And just as a sunspot can explode and send that plasma out into space, sometimes that cloud can lose its grip magnetically on the sun's atmosphere and just rip away out into space even without a solar flare. These are the two main ways that we get an explosive particle enhancement, but there's also a more subtle particle enhancement from these. This dark thing is called a coronal hole. And while most of the sun has these arches, these magnetic arches, which also help contain a lot of the material there are areas on the sun like this where the magnetic fields are open into space. This allows the solar wind to spew out much more strongly. Basically, rather than an explosion and a shock wave being added to the solar wind, it's almost like you slowly depress the gas pedal a little more and the vehicle starts accelerating. That's how you would better think of a coronal hole stream. And so we have these ways, now that we are thinking about the sun beyond light, and we are thinking about other kinds of particles that come into the atmosphere, say from cosmic rays, we need to start understanding that while The sun is the giver of life with this ultraviolet light. We have this solar wind that is just as prevalent, and it is far more variable. We have coronal mass ejections that can come from solar flares or filament eruptions, and we can have coronal hole streams which amplify or create more energetic particle streams within the solar wind. This is very important to remember for several reasons. Not only are those particle events the ones that are scary in terms of solar flares or the solar EMP, if you've heard of this, but they're important climatologically. You see, the ultraviolet light and visible light, they barely change. Ever. We're talking about a 0.1% shift over several years' time. But the X-ray light can vary by 10 to 10,000 times over very short periods. The far ultraviolet light, so ultraviolet light is here, but there's also a near and a far spectrum to it. The far ultraviolet light, that can vary by 15% over the same amount of time that overall ultraviolet light only varies 0.1%. Those particles in the solar wind, over very short amounts of time, they can have a 10 to 1,000x increase or change, especially during those coronal mass ejection impacts when they are arriving at Earth. The cosmic rays from the galaxy, 5 to 15% change, and during one of these actual impacts from the sun, there can be a 3 to 10% change in a day. This is left out of climate models. This is what is starting to scare the technological world about the sun. Most importantly, right now, what you need to have in your head is, yes, there is this light energy from the sun, but equally important, solar particle energy.
I'm Mark Moldwin, professor of climate and space science and engineering here at the University of Michigan. One of the areas that I specialize in is space weather, and that's how the sun influences the Earth's environment, and particularly technology. And the most famous geomagnetic storm happened in September of 1859, when a scientist, Richard Carrington, was taking a sketch of the sun. And while he was sketching the sunspot of the sun, he saw a visible flash. About a day later, he noticed that the compass needle, the magnetometer, wiggled. He wrote a letter to the Royal Transactions saying, "Dear sirs, on this date I observed this flare, and then the geomagnetic disturbance. Did anybody else observe it?" And people around the world said that they did, and they observed aurora in Cuba, right? I mean, so this was a lot of energy dumped into the system. He suggested that whatever happened on the sun caused the magnetic field to wiggle. And so that was the first suggestion of this connection, that storms on the sun can cause storms on Earth. The Carrington event back in 1859 was pre all types of technology. Communication was through telegraph wires, and there were fires that broke out at railway stations at the telegraph. And coronal mass ejections are huge explosions of the outer atmosphere of the sun. And so you can imagine an aircraft carrier, and now think about 500,000 aircraft carriers. So that's a mass of a coronal mass ejection. It can be thrown off the sun at a few million miles an hour. And so it can take a day or so to go from the sun to the Earth, but it has a huge amounts of energy, just momentum, and it hits the Earth's protective shield, and it causes it to ring like a bell. A big coronal mass ejection Carrington event storm could knock out Europe or North America's power grid.
Only about 10 years ago, we realized why all of a sudden the telegraph lines ignited on planet Earth 19 hours later, because that's how long it took for the energy to get from the sun to the Earth to induct into the telegraph lines, to light them up on fire, shock operators, to cause fires in the cities and cause fires in the brushlands. That was from a small solar flare, really, a small one comparatively. But the deal is, if that same one happened now, we have a lot more than telegraph lines. We'd lose all our satellites in space. We'd lose a lot of the communication stuff on Earth. We'd lose a lot of we'd completely be gone with GPS. That'd be gone. We're going to have lots of transformer fires, all that kind of stuff, and blackouts. Maybe years to fix all the blackouts for something that massive.
You just watched a little bit from the documentary there, sort of implying one of the reasons why we care about this particle energy, and that would be the technology. It is a matter of fact that the most well-known risk of these big solar events, major space weather, we call it, would be on technology. But there is a far greater expanse to why we care about the particle emission from the sun, beyond just the light. And yes, the first is technological. A big enough solar flare will send us right back to the Stone Age, and with Earth's magnetic field weakening, basically the premise of this entire presentation, it's going to take less and less extreme of a blast from the sun to do the same level of damage here on Earth. In fact, that's one of the things that we've been witnessing over the last couple of years. But most people are not too challenged by the concept of an electromagnetic explosion and shock wave that hits Earth can cause an electromagnetic pulse and damage electronics here on the planet. That's relatively easy to understand. Where you have to start bringing in other things that are already in your brain is when we start talking about the impact of this energy on water and water vapor, on iron and conductive material, and on piezoelectric crystals. Now, this first one and the second one too probably aren't that difficult for you. Iron, electromagnetism. When we're talking about water, maybe you've got some kind of basic idea. I mean, you understand that you don't want to be swimming in a pool during a thunderstorm any more than you want to be holding a golf club over your head. But what are the actual implications of the fact that this electromagnetic energy can be impacting water, iron, other metals, other conductive materials here on the Earth, and piezoelectric crystals, including olivine, the #1 constituent of the crust? Let's start with the weather, because this is where a lot is ignored. By losing solar particle forcing from the climate discussion, you lose all of the key integral short-term particle forcing pathways for how the sun is actually able to impact the weather. In this book, in our previous book, in the previous books to them, we have gone over the hundreds and hundreds of papers showing how there are very strong correlations between solar activity and Earth's temperature, but also precipitation, the winds, the jet streams, lightning, storm cells, atmospheric pressure cells, clouds, the major oscillations and modes of the planet, and the global electric circuit. Now, this is where we could probably take an entire day just going over the hundreds of statistical findings. And most of the statistical findings of these are beginning to be more and more towards that particle forcing data from the sun rather than the light energy or irradiance data from the sun. But what's more important is understanding how this actually works. A lot of it, in terms of long periods of time, has to do with the fact that the oceans can easily take in, trap, store, and then re-release energy. They are fantastic modulators of extremity in the climate. What you are seeing right here is known as the Walker circulation. The Walker circulation is a critical flow of where moisture is evaporating versus where it's tending to come back down. A lot of this is depending on El Nino versus La Nina. A lot of it impacts further things like the North Atlantic Oscillation or the Southern Annular Mode. And these key foundational heat injection and heat storage processes of the planet are directly impacted by both sunlight and solar particles. Now, Here's where it gets interesting, because as these solar wind particles are coming to Earth, light just goes wherever it's pointed. That's not what happens to the particles. When these solar wind particles are impacting Earth, Earth has a magnetic field that likes to deflect them. It also gets compressed while it is deflecting them, and while it is compressing, it actually compresses some of the Van Allen belt electrons down into the atmosphere. So even though the solar particles hit Earth's magnetic field and don't pass, they do transfer the energy somewhat into Earth's atmosphere. Now, while they're being deflected north and south and all around the Earth, up at the north and the south poles of the magnetic field, there are holes called the polar cusps. This is where the particle energy freely bypasses Earth's magnetic shield, comes down into Earth's atmosphere, and triggers the auroras. And so while we have this energy that is coming in and it is compressing Earth's magnetic field and shooting that charged energy down into the tropics, per se, we also have this excitation of the uppermost layer there, and it is causing a push of this energy downward towards the equator to meet the energy that is already being introduced there from the compression of this electromagnetic shockwave impacting the Earth. In general, all of these things are juicing up the top of the sky, called the ionosphere. It is basically another layer of atmosphere on top of the air, except most of it isn't neutral gas that you can breathe. It is charged particles, and that happens to be the ceiling of what we call the global electric circuit. There is a constant flow of electric current up and down from that top of the sky ionosphere down to the ground. It is like one big circuit. And so when we get this injection of energy from the sun into that layer, it is injecting it into the circuit that goes throughout the entire atmosphere. And so, when we have this, it is not so difficult to understand exactly how the sun can impact the weather. All of this energy gets dumped into this electric current system up and down through the atmosphere, and that electric current can impact the water vapor in the atmosphere. Obviously, that's going to impact clouds and precipitation, but as it moves them around, it determines where is sunny and where it's not. That impacts temperatures. Obviously, those things are going to impact winds and storms. Once you start to see how this particle energy is actually injected into the planet, all of a sudden, all these correlations begin to make sense. And then when you can actually watch this, and you can see how electric current actually moves water around, now we're talking, because now you're saying, okay, I'm actually watching this with my eyes. But then you have to say to yourself, okay, they showed the statistics. Now I can understand how it works in the atmosphere. There's water other places too, like our bodies. But do you know what else is in our bodies? Pretty much everything that happens inside of our body is mediated by electrolytes flowing through ion channels. Our mitochondria are electromagnetic energy factories inside every cell that we have. Probably not beyond most of your understanding that our nervous system is almost entirely electrical, but a lot of people don't know that the electric power of the cardiac system is larger than that of the nervous system. This is why, just as we're not going to go through, and by the way, in both of these books, there's an entire chapter on the health effects. Again, we're talking hundreds and hundreds of studies on the impact of these solar storms on cardiac, psychological, autoimmune, emotional, the list goes on, and over long term, even things like DNA damage, cancer rates. And in terms of the psychology, it extends out not only to things like emotional problems or psychological diagnoses, but crime rates, terrorism rates, wars, revolutions, rises of populism, things like that. All of these can be tied back to these major solar cycles. And all of these things are either direct physiological or large-scale behavioral of the human population, and they work for the same reason that our technology and our weather is susceptible to this electromagnetic solar energy. Just think about it at the most extreme levels. A lightning strike can stop your heart. And with a manufactured lightning strike, they can restart it. Electroshock therapy impacting how people think and how they behave. A lot of those things aren't fantastic science, but the premise of the effect can happen once this energy is introduced. Who will deny this? Let's think about all that water motion. You know what? Let's watch that water motion again, because it's really important for the earthquake and the volcanic connection. You know, we have all of this energy that is dumped in.
Really quick, asked in the audience. Dumb question for anyone. From Brian Pemble, not a dumb question. Would a Faraday bag protect against a large solar flare? Yes, it would. But after that Faraday bag device comes out of it, it's protected. You're not going to have a cellular network. You're not going to have Wi-Fi. You're not going to have anything to go ahead and use that device. Yes, it could work locally for a short period of time until the battery, if you want to call it, survives. You're looking, more importantly, having some kind of a Faraday cage to go ahead and protect that and solar energy production material and whatever you're going to need, because everything else around it is going to be blown out. So let's continue.
And we have the flow through the atmosphere, but the floor of that circuit is the crust. And many of you know there is more water locked beneath our feet than in all of the oceans up here on the surface. What happens when these currents, not only from the global electric circuit, but the geomagnetically induced currents from the solar storms themselves, hit this water, hit these metals, or here, hit the olivine crystals? What you're seeing here is no discharge, no glow mode, juiced up these piezoelectric crystals.
And there's examples of this that they found on the Giza Plateau that show things that have been blown apart. They're showing where stone and, more importantly, marble has these scorchings, even melting marks that have gone on it that could only have been caused by this kind of result.
And then we introduced a grounding rod. Upon discharge of the energy, they self-translocate. They just move on their own when they discharge their energy. All this underneath the ground while the iron and the water are reacting as well. This is why there are also hundreds of papers on the solar earthquake connection, and there are starting to be more on the solar volcanic connection as well. None of this should be shocking. If you just take it as, hey, the sun can send us back to the Stone Age. The sun can stop your heart. The sun can cause you and your spouse to have a fight today. The sun can cause this earthquake. The sun could make that storm worse. It sounds crazy until you realize these are electromagnetic injections of energy into systems that are built on metal, on water, on electromagnetically reactive stuff. And all of a sudden, it doesn't sound so crazy anymore.
In the recent decades, the position of the magnetic poles has been moving very rapidly. It's been moving across northern Canada, towards Russia, back again. That means the areas where you're going to have more or less problems with the satellites also shift. I'm Mark Barassa. I'm a professor of meteorology at Florida State University and the associate director of the Center for Ocean Atmospheric Prediction Studies. I lead a...
Now remember, a lot of people ask in the chat in other areas, who in the hell is Ben Davidson? What the hell does he know? But apparently he's got a lot of scientists from NASA and other major agencies coming forward and backing up what he's been talking about. Here we go.
As a science team for investigating surface winds. So we measure winds over the ocean. So there's different categories of solar flares. They're organized by order of magnitude, so a factor of 10 difference in strength. But as they go up in this letter, they become 10 times as bad. And when you get up to these more severe cases, they are not just a little bit more severe than the lower ones. They are a lot more severe. So it's been hypothesized that we're due for a change, a swap of the magnetic polarity of the Earth, where south and north would swap signs. And during that process, it's been suggested that the electromagnetic field around Earth could weaken to be more like Mars, which doesn't have a protective electromagnetic field. In terms of electronics on the Earth, if we got one of those blasts, it will cause an enormous electric surge in the power lines, those that are still metallic. So if we have fiber optic cable, not a problem. If we have the actual power lines, though, which are more metal, then you're going to get them destroyed. We will have them glow, we will have fires, we will have melting of things. Our power grid is the same power grid we've had decades ago.
We did a little bit of why we care when it comes to solar particle energy, because it does all of these things here on Earth: technology, weather, seismicity, our bodies, our brains. We also care because in what Earth is experiencing right now, a geomagnetic excursion, a cyclical shift of Earth's magnetic poles, the magnetic field of Earth weakens. Now, this has a very minute impact on the amount of light that comes in, but it has a dramatic impact on how many particles come in. A good way to think of it is you take two sides of a magnet, all right, that are supposed to repel each other. You know, you try to put them and they want to push apart. All right, that's the force that is protecting Earth from all of this scary charged particle energy out in space. Shine a flashlight at that magnet. See how much of the light that magnetic field stops. Basically none. Basically none. But the magnetic fields and the particles, if you're trying to throw, you know, a particle that would be repelled through there, it's never getting through. Except if you weaken the magnet, then they're going to start to get through. And so these correlations with the technology, with our bodies, with the weather, with earthquakes, with the way that the world even rotates, all these connections are not only real, and they should make sense to you now, since you know how that energy gets in and what it does to the things that are here, the water, the metal, etc. All of that is getting amplified because the shield, the only thing standing in the way of us and those particles, is weakening, letting more and more of them in. Now, what you're looking at right here, this is a pretty rough but relatively accurate list of those geomagnetic excursions, the rapid pole shifts. Now, there is some wonkiness to this because a lot of it depends on isotope dating, which is largely a disaster. For example, in green, we have the Lake Mungo excursion 24,000 years ago. If you go into the peer-reviewed literature, you'll get everything from 21 to 36,000 years ago. For Mono Lake, which was at 36,000 years ago, you'll get everything from 26 to 40,000 years ago. There are 2 Lechamp events on this list. For a long time, and to this day, many geologists think it was just one. You go and you look at any of the data chips, there's clearly a big drop, and then there's another drop about 6,000 years later. This is happening approximately every 6,000 years. And one of the weirdest things is it is generally understood that it's harder to spot these the further in time you go back. And yet, the last one to officially be recognized is the one 6,000 years ago, the most recent one, the one that should be easiest to see. There is a paleo intensity drop that is visible in all of the magnetic field data. For years, we were calling this the NOAA event. There was a very strong confirmation that came out about 1.5 years ago out of the Tianqi region in China, so I started calling it the Tianqi region. Since then, I have found geologists not doing the same. So maybe we're back to calling the event 6,000 years ago the NOAA NOAA event. But what we call it doesn't really matter. And whether it's 6,000 or 6,100 versus 5,721 years is also not important, because whatever that actual number is, it's very repeatable in the data. There's that exact distance in time between these layers of disaster. We're that exact distance from the last one in terms of the sediment. When we look in time, yep, 6,000 years, we're perfectly due in time. What are we seeing right now? We'll go into this a little more, but Earth's magnetic poles are moving, and Earth's magnetic field, that shield blocking all of the particle energy, is weakening once again, right on time. Maybe it's just a coincidence.
I don't know. Daryl, you've been watching this. Your thoughts so far, does it sound like a coincidence, or does it look like more of a repeatable pattern that they've looked at going back 72,000 years, that every 6,000 years we're getting another geomagnetic excursion?
That sounds like a great poll question. I guess I have to take the guy's word at it. I have not studied this enough. I didn't know that they were every 6,000 years. I thought they were more along the lines of every 12 or 24,000. But anyway, very interesting.
I've only been watching it since 2012, so give me a little break.
Isn't the 12,000 year ago one the Younger Dryas?
Yes, it was. But there was another one that was 6,000 years ago called the Tanchi, which apparently relates to the NOAA event.
What's Gothenburg?
Gothenburg is around the time of the Younger Dryas. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very interesting. I mean, it's not unbelievable, that's for sure. I'm sure everybody's lived somewhere that they've dug up in their backyard seashells. I mean,
Yep, exactly. Let's go ahead and continue on this a bit more. I thought I'd just jump in here for a second. Here we go.
Maybe it doesn't matter, or maybe it really, really matters. I'm going to toss this up here, and if you guys want to screenshot, take a picture, whatever, these are the main recent articles that are describing.
So what he's getting into, he's talking about extinctions and what happens at every time that the pole goes and flips, or you have a geomagnetic excursion going on, maybe not a full one, we enter an area or a time of climate destabilization, and that's where we're kind of getting at. So the stuff we're seeing on the planet right now could be caused by humans or aggravated by it, but the major driver of what we're dealing with is actually the sun. Now, if you guys are getting, if you want to call it ads during the show, I have that turned off completely. It is completely disabled. I have a button here that I can go ahead and click to insert an ad, but I'm not doing it. So if you're getting that, I apologize. This is YouTube just trying to force everybody to go ahead and get you to subscribe. So it's not me, folks, honestly. I go against it. Honestly, when the show's done, I have to wait an hour or so if I'm still awake, go back to the show. And for every 15 minutes, there's 6 ads, of which I delete 5 of them. I leave one ad every 15 minutes. It's not that much. If it's too much, let me know, but I try, as long as I remember to go through and add it. I'm literally counting 1, delete, skip, and I do that because YouTube is doing what they do, and it's not me, honestly. Let's go ahead and get back to this video. Here we go.
It is an extinction level event to have a magnetic pole shift, a geomagnetic excursion. It's a clean sweep. It's a clean sweep. If you go back 20 years, 30 years, there was some discussion back and forth and some disagreement. It's a clean sweep now. Everybody recognizes that this is a complete disaster. And the reason is this, basically, the change in Earth's magnetic field. Now, on the left side, you can see what Earth's magnetic field looks like when it's strong, and that yellowish, greenish, lightish color there. That's the protection that we are getting from the sun, which you have to envision is off the screen to the left. But over on the right side of this image, you can see we don't have that brighter yellowish green. In fact, everything's all wonky. It's not clean. And in fact, look where the actual white lines connect to the central Earth, not up at the poles, but at the equator, a 90-degree shift and a weakening of the Earth's magnetic field. Now, the reason why most of these papers say that this is an extinction level event is because of ozone. Now, this is absolutely a big thing, but it's not the whole story. Here's what's going on. The ozone layer above our head, what does it do? It protects us from the most dangerous form of ultraviolet light. Yes, ultraviolet light is needed for photosynthesis, for our skin, vitamin D production, for a lot of things here on the planet. But that scary range of it would basically kill everything on the planet if it was allowed to fully come through. Now, here's where the ozone comes in. The ozone that is up there protecting us from that dangerous UV radiation is not the same ozone that was up there a year ago. And it won't be the same ozone that's up there a year from now. The ozone layer is in a constant state of creation and destruction. It's a balance. Sunlight, light energy, creates the photoionization and photochemical processes that create ozone. But those solar particles hit and destroy ozone. Normally, this is in a pretty good balance. However, as Earth's magnetic field is weakening, remember, it doesn't let in all that more light, but it lets in a lot more of the particles. Those destroy the ozone. We get this surge of those particles as Earth's magnetic field weakens, and we have a general loss of the ozone. It does not disappear completely, but it gets depleted enough that that scary ultraviolet range is now a problem. And so, let's just take a look at this right here. Particles destroy the ozone. This increases the ultraviolet light that is able to penetrate. That ultraviolet light is also able to act on clouds, on surface temperatures, on the oceans. And so, as these particles destroy the ozone, we have a twofer, a biological and a climatological punch to the world. But what else is happening? Because those particles that are coming through, what did we just talk about in the green slides? Those particles themselves are already a climatological, meteorological, and a biological, a health issue. So, as these particles destroy the ozone, the particles themselves are already a weather and a health problem. But when they destroy the ozone, there's a secondary weather and a secondary health problem. We've got 4 big problems on a planet where most humans forget it's not that easy to live and survive on this planet. Life is hard. You throw 4 curveballs, 2 climatological, 2 biological at the world, you're going to have major die-offs. That's why all of these papers are now in agreement. Clean sweep, flawless victory. And while there is this double dose of a climatological and a double dose of a biological assault, the animals aren't going to know where they're going. Everybody knows birds use the magnetic field for migration, but it goes so far beyond that. Mammals, about 1,000 different marine creatures, insects, plants. They use this not only for migration, but other kinds of navigation, to foraging grounds, to reproductive zones. Some mammals, when fleeing a predator, preferentially do so along geomagnetic field lines. A navigational hiccup during a double dose of climatological and a double dose of biological assault from the Earth and the Sun is why all of those papers, now, as we have a better understanding of the way our planet works, why they all say, yeah, this is a very, very big deal. It's a huge thing. We also have information that these things are, in fact, all tied together in the way that they appear to be. In fact, we just went over that there is this 6,000, and I will be making a case for a fuller...
No, Johnny R. 31, he's not LARPing, he's real. And he's bringing up a lot of scientific fact, connecting the dots, and has a lot of major scientists behind him at this point. So, yeah.
Harmonic up to a 12,000-year cycle in terms of Earth's magnetism, but at its base there is at least a 6,000-year cycle. There is evidence possibly for shorter ones as well. There is a 6,000-year hydroclimate event or Heinrich event cycle. Also, shorter versions of that as well, known as Dansgaard-Oeschger events, or the Holocene version, a Bond event. That teal-colored link right below the middle line there, that is the paper on the solar Heinrich Bond cycle, which does, of course, also match the 6,000-year geomagnetic cycle. And just for good measure, right afterwards, the world's top scientists, and this has been confirmed several times at the black link down there below the last line, we are on the same 6,000-year cycle, largest super flares. Again, maybe this is all just a coincidence. Now, here's something interesting. This was from a paper recently. Now, in addition to there being all of this isotope confusion about when did this event happen versus this event, and maybe this event was actually this event. Basically what we can see is when you look at individual stacks, it's a repeating thing. We have a similar confusion for when the modern event actually began. If we look at this chart right here, it would seem to suggest that the modern magnetic pole shift actually began about 300 or 400 years ago, and we've lost about 55% of the field. But that really is coming up, coming down off of the peak that you see there, and it's much more well understood that the major shift, the major beginning to the movement of Earth's magnetic field and to the loss of Earth's magnetic field was 1859. Every year, it was going to shift a little bit this way, a little bit this way, a little bit this way. By the year 2000, this shift had gotten to the point where the magnetic poles, the North Pole anyway, was moving at 20 kilometers a year. And we had lost 10% of Earth's magnetic field in only about 150 years. Then 2006 happens. There's a major acceleration. We go from 5% loss per century to 5% per decade, and we start seeing the magnetic pole racing at about 40 kilometers a year. Jump to 2010. We're now down to 15% total field loss according to the ESA Swarm mission. And the mission manager for Swarm came out and said, we've gone from losing 5% per century to 5% every decade. We're losing Earth's magnetic field 10 times faster now.
And that's
Earth's
accelerating.
magnetic poles are getting ready to flip. We lost 10% in 150 years and another 5% in only a decade, meaning that to lose that same 10% would take 20 years, which took 150 years before. We've seen more moderate accelerations via two geomagnetic jerks from 2015 to 2018. And then in 2019, all while the experts were telling us that the magnetic poles were going to keep they're going to slow down. They're not going to keep doing this. We're not going to have a pole shift. Every world magnetic model, which comes out on the years ending in 5 and 0, they all say it's going to stop, it's going to stop. But in 2019, it had sped up and was moving so fast, they had to deliver the first ever out-of-cycle update. Not on a year ending in a 5 or a 0. They had to do this in 2019 because they couldn't wait that extra year. GPS, military, major commercial stuff, airlines, it was going to start affecting everything. They had to do that. They had to re-release.
Remember, they've been talking about the Earth's rotation slowing on a gradual process. That's why we have February 29th every so often, because we've got these extra times that comes up that doesn't work to our calendar. More importantly, that the Earth's rotation was slowing down. But yes, since 2019, yes, we've been getting these microseconds that keep on getting subtracted from our total rotation to actually subtracted from our rotation time rather than be added on, meaning our rotation is increasing and speeding up year after year.
The world magnetic model a year early because of how fast Earth's magnetic field was changing. Then things got much worse, because what we have here are two of the most important papers, and I am going to show you these because these are the critical recent updates. We're going to start at 2022. There was a major acceleration leading into a 2023 major magnetic anomaly. That's what the paper on the left is about by Dr. Sergei Simonenko. He's the one who identified that there was this major anomaly that occurred at some point in early 2023, and it had really set the clock going, and Earth's magnetic field had begun to go even faster. This is when the auroral events began. Those who have been here at the channel for a while, you know it was March or April of 2023 that we started saying, hey guys, look, what the sun is throwing off, the solar wind that is impacting Earth. Neither of these things can account for how bananas these auroras are. None of these things can account for the high KP index. None of these things can account for the fact that we're seeing low latitude auroras over and over again, which is not only abnormal, but the fact that what the sun is throwing at us is slightly less than what it used to take to see these low latitude auroras. There's something very strange going on. They're happening more often from less instigation. It's kind of like, imagine if over time, those of you who like to have a couple of beers and watch football, imagine if over time you were expecting to drink less and less beer and feel more and more happy by the end of the night. That's not how this should work, right? But that's what's happening with Earth's auroras. Earth's taking in less and less, but it's getting tipsier and tipsier by the end of the night. Well, what's happening? The interface, in this case, the individual's tolerance is for some reason hitting the floor. Earth's tolerance magnetically for the electromagnetic energy from space is hitting the floor. Then we got a geomagnetic jerk in 2024, and in 2025 we have early model degradation. Last time that they had to do the out-of-cycle update to the magnetic field, the model was released in 2015. They were going to release another one in 2020. They had to do it 1 year early. They released the 2025 model. By May of 2025, there was major degradation. 6 months after the release, which was technically in December of 2024. So it was 6 months up to May of 2025.
It's not going to happen.
6 months and we're seeing major degradation. The auroral and atmospheric anomalies are continuing, especially the polar summer mesospheric echo enhancement, which has nothing to do with CO2. The North Atlantic cold blob and its connection with the AMOC. The ocean shutdown process confirmed. The geodesy anomalies, specifically with the Chandler wobble, something that's not supposed to be this variable, it disappeared for a little bit. A critical function of Earth's rotational and physical dynamics and characteristics just disappeared for a time. And here we are in early 2026. The auroral events are already continuing. We weren't even 3 full weeks into January before the first major southward auroral event happened. They were visible in Florida again. And we're seeing even more geodesy anomalies with the polar wander. There's a couple of folks on X who are tracking this, and nothing looks right on the planet right now. Our planet's unrecognizable. Geodesically, aurorally, atmospherically, electromagnetically, ionospherically. And then you look at the people living here. All that stuff for 2025, that's in the paper to the right, by the way. Basically, what took 4 years for the first out-of-cycle release, and which was dramatic, that should never happen. They should never have to release the world magnetic model out of cycle. We're basically there. Except it didn't take 4 years this time. It took about 6 months. When you break this out, when you realize that we've lost 5% of Earth's magnetic field per century, then we accelerated to 5% per decade, how we have continued accelerating even though they have not given us new marks on how much we have lost. Basically, what this does is this extrapolates the curve out. I don't think that the green or the red are likely. I think the yellow is quite likely.
But you never know.
Essentially, when you extrapolate the curve out, you have to do some guessing for, okay, when's the next acceleration? Is it going to be a moderate acceleration, a major acceleration? When's the big acceleration take us over the edge? Those are questions that no human could actually answer. But with simple mathematics, we know that the green and red lines create the boundaries of what is possible.
Exactly, Sam.
So the yellow line, sometime in the 2040s, appears to be when we should be expecting to have this magnetic pole shift. And so what is important for you to remember right now, this cycle exists. We are due for it right now. It has begun. It is accelerating. And it is an extinction level event.
How about that? Daryl, you around? Interesting conversation going on here. Let's get back to the audience here. Yeah, there's still an hour to go, folks, which means we'll be covering the rest of this on another show, picking up specifically the cycle exists. We are due. It has begun. It's accelerating, and it's a huge deal.
Yeah, my question is how long does it take for the poles to flip? Do I have time to get like can we do it like in a cruise and we just maintain the same dynamics in terms of temperature? By the time the poles flip, the cruise is ended?
Well, maybe it could be happening in 2030, 2040, 2050, but it's sometime that's coming relatively, soon on the short time cycle of humanity. More importantly, the sun and the earth. It's something that happens on a regular basis. It happens every 6,000 years. And guess what, folks? 6,000 years has long gone by. And that's why we're getting the accelerated movement of the poles. More importantly, we have the South Atlantic magnetic anomaly that's currently expanding on exponential rates. Within a short number of years, it's going to be extending out into the Pacific, which basically is a huge hole that's going in our magnetic field. Maybe that's happened in times before. Could it possibly explain why there's been a lot of, if you want to call it, abandoned civilizations in Central America and South America?
Thomas, how long does it take has this ever been explained? How long does it actually take
for it to flip? Once it goes and it flips, you could have a time period of up to 700 plus years of a spot where it goes to flip. It's not like you have automatically, it's going to go from this position to this position. It's going to go from one to another position to where you're going to get a bunch of north poles and a bunch of south poles at the same time. There will be a time when there's absolutely no field going on. Eventually, it's going to come down to just a new north pole and south pole, which will be more likely, put at the equator at some places near the equator.
So does he think we're in the process of that now? Are you saying it takes 700 years for the poles to flip?
We're in the point of it going and transitioning, and once it goes to flip,
we're transitioning.
We're transitioning from a stable magnetic field to an unstable magnetic field that's going to flip. In the process of flipping, it's not like it's going to go and say, okay, this is now south and this is north, south, and this is north. It gets to a point, it's going to get to a point where it's halfway on the planet potentially, and from there it could completely turn off. We could get multiple north poles and south poles all over the place, and just as far as a mess of a magnetic field that's really not protecting Earth in many different places. But, this has been recorded many times in the geological record from volcanoes showing that where all these different things happen in the past.
Yeah, it's interesting. So essentially, perhaps we could adapt during that period of time to these changes?
Possibly, but in addition to the field flipping and stuff, there's also a potential reorientation of the planet. It's where its axis actually flips 90 degrees as it continues to rotate. Where the Antarctica and the Arctic will actually come down towards the poles and start rotating around, placing the United States more towards, if you want to call it, where Argentina and stuff is in South America, where we're getting brought down, which will change stuff out for a period of time. But when that event happens, they're calling it a crustal decoupling. It'll actually cause like tidal waves multiple miles high that'll come and crash over the coast and wipe out the surface. But then once it'll be like that for a while, but then once it gets to a point, it's going to right itself and go back again after a short period of time and cause those waves and everything to come to hit the surface a second time.
I think they need to come up with a better name than crustal decoupling. That just doesn't sound.
There's another one called the ECDO. But it's a decoupling of the actual crust itself from the core of the planet that allows it to go ahead and do it. And it's because we have this T-shaped structures that are deep within our planet that could be potentially from another planet that collided with Earth at a regular time. That because we've got that wobble that goes along with our planet, the precession they talk about that goes every 24,000 years, which is every 4 cycles of the actual rotation that goes on, that this kind of things go on.
Interesting stuff.
Oh, yeah. And as other people go more towards ancient aliens and different things that we've talked about in the past, this is something that I've been just following closely since before 2012 when I've been watching Ben Davidson all this time. And as time has been going on, what he's been saying has been coming across as more on target than other areas. And don't get freaked out about it, folks, because if this stuff kind of goes on about it, it's going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. It's beyond humanity's capability. We can't control this stuff. If you're not at a spot where you're 5,000 feet above sea level, get ready to gut on your roof and welcome in the giant waves, because there's no other way to get around it.
It sounds like a great novel turned into a movie at some point. This whole entire process being described, because I do think, where people would have been wiped out in the past, that now society is way more mobile, way more adaptable, that you'd have way more people surviving these kinds of
maybe
events.
If we build enough underground structures on the planet, we'll be able to survive. Because don't forget, when there's no magnetic field on the planet, after potentially we get these giant waves that go through and you blow out a majority of the civilization, it's not going to be safe on the surface for some time, for hundreds of years. That's why if you look at areas where they had Darren Kuyu, where they had the ability to go ahead and grow crops, deal with their, if you want to call it, their stock animals that they would have around, and they had structures and cities underground where they could house 20,000 people in just one of the facilities. So it's something that
is a popular theme in some current popular TV series, Silo, Fallout.
Right.
So, yeah,
but these are to protect us from humans blowing ourselves up. But in reality, we could be looking something of trying to protect humans. Now, one thing that's interesting is we know Elon Musk has been talking about going to Mars for the longest time and prioritizing going to Mars. But as of just yesterday, they've reprioritized all of their efforts for SpaceX against going to Mars, but for going to the moon.
Yeah, they want to keep the contract. They have to switch. They have to move some.
But they have a lot of stuff they're doing on themselves besides the moon. And SpaceX was focusing on trying to get to Mars sooner than before the moon. But the reality is maybe they're realizing, there's helium-3 there. We can construct launch pads on the moon and use it as a method to potentially easier get to Mars.
Yeah, that's the whole. I mean, that's the benefit of the moon, in my opinion, is it's a launching pad.
It's right here.
Everywhere else. Launching pad to go everywhere else.
Oh, gosh, yes. Absolutely. Well, this has been a fun Saturday. Hopefully everyone enjoyed our show. Everything is kind of back up and running somewhat. I'll get off this beta version of OBS tonight. I promise. I don't want to deal with this shit again. But yeah, interesting things all around, and can't wait to see where all this is going to go.
Yeah. Another good show. Absolutely. 100%. I love everybody's input.
Absolutely. I want to thank some of our supporters out there who threw out some super chats our way during the show. Yes, we're a fan-funded program, and we appreciate everyone's love and support for what we do here on Disclosure tonight. Who am I talking about? Let's bring this up. And thanks to more people. We got Faze Will threw $50 out. Thank you very, very much, Faze Will. The Coin 405, 100 Swedish kroners. Thank you very much. We have Brennan England all the way from Australia with 10 Australian bucks. Thank you very much. Stargazer 125 from the United States, $1.49. Thank you very much. We appreciate everything. And this is Liz W. Always entertaining, informative show. Thanks, Thomas. Thank you for coming here. Because you know what? This show is more about you guys than it is about me. And sometimes I'm thinking, I don't feel like having a show today. I have it anyway because I know there's an audience out there who wants to find a community to come and hang out with to talk about these kind of things. And we appreciate everyone's support. Daryl, I appreciate you coming in the back. Andy, everybody, thanks for being a part of this tonight.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Yes. And as we usually say, actually, you know what? Wait a minute. Hold on a second here.
Hello, Susan.
Well, yes. I have a feeling Susan's going to be around. Where is that at? Because I fixed this right before the frickin' show.
It was a really good show until this point.
Oh, thank you very much. It's downstream here live. Where is that at? There it is. Yes, we have a guest who came in, Daryl. Susan is here, just from not spying on the bottom. But yes, she's taking over as the host of Disclosure Tonight.
Oh, my Lord.
Oh, no, not again. Yes, she's back, and she's got a new voice.
Oh, yeah. It wouldn't surprise me if she has a very deep voice, actually.
Yes, she does. Okay, the Susan eyes aren't showing up anymore. They got fucked up. Anyway, I'll deal with them after the show. Well, once again, I want to thank everybody for coming out to this episode. Let me get rid of her out of here. Disclosure Tonight, as we usually say, eyes open, no fear, be safe, everybody. But where's it at?
Go back to Party City where you belong.
Absolutely. We'll catch you on the flip side. Good night, everybody. I'll come back now here. See you Monday. Bye-bye.